Hello, and thanks for visiting my garden. I decided to record this video since I had everything neatly mowed, trimmed, and weeded at the same time, and it all looks good right now. This will give you an idea of the garden layout and what I have growing right now for summer. The first thing we see here is a keyhole garden made from an old hay ring with some herbs growing in it. The large plant is a tarragon that overwintered. There is some basil, some dill on the left, and some thyme in the middle. There's also room left because we have some parsley that's going in here. It's just not quite big enough yet. The next keyhole garden we see is also made from an old hay ring, and this is all raspberries. They're flowering. There's not quite berries on them yet, but we'll have berries very soon. You can see my hugel bed with the tomatoes in it to the right, and as I walk around I show more of the cold frame. This is where we start our tomato transplants. You can see I have a few that aren't transplanted out yet. There's a large kale and a chard to the left. Here are a few of the remaining tomato transplants. I had 14 trays of those growing trays with the tomatoes in there. We have some peach trees that you see there, and here I go along the hugel bed showing all 180 of the tomato plants in there. They're labeled with their individual varieties. I don't think in the video we can really read the labels from here, but there are multiple different kinds, some heirlooms, some hybrids, a little of everything, including a few of the special University of Florida hybrids I have this year. Some of the tomatoes are just starting to blossom, so hopefully we'll have fruit sets starting very soon. Now you can see my compost bins. The one on the left is this year's current compost bin with a thermometer in it, and if we can see it in the video, it's cooking along at right around 100 degrees. So warm, not terribly hot, but it's cooking. Then the middle bin is last year's compost, and the right bin is the year before that's compost, so it's just about ready. This fall I'll spread it in the garden and return those nutrients back to the soil. You can see the whole garden area here is mulched because I don't like taking the time to weed, so covering the soil with the mulch makes sure that there's no room for the weeds to get established. You can see also I use these blocks of hay square bales to plant things between. These are 10 little eggplants here in this bed. Hopefully we'll have some eggplants this year. These are onions from early spring, and they're just about done. They're setting very nice bulbs. This is sesame. We have 2 beds of black-eyed peas, one of which I started from seed that I saved, and this one is from commercial seed. Then we have more tomatoes, the ones that wouldn't fit in the hugel bed. All 5 of these beds here are VF Roma. They're determinate tomatoes, so they'll set one flush of fruit and then they'll be done. This is 2 beds worth of winter wheat that I planted as a cover crop to compete with the winter weeds. And the wheat is just about done. You can see it's starting to turn golden. A few more weeks it'll be golden, starting to shatter out the seeds. Then we have this whole patch at the left side of the garden that's all blackberries. I mulched this part we're walking on now about 2 years ago to compete with the weeds. You can compare it to the part to the left that hasn't been mulched, and you can see what a difference it makes in the plants. And these are the blackberries. They're setting fruit now. The fruit is just ripening. We had our first pick of a few of the ripe ones just a few days ago, and it's probably time to go pick them again. The next thing I see here is 3 rows of corn. This is my summer sweet corn, and unfortunately we'll get a whole big flush of corn all at once, and we'll have to make friends and things to do with lots of corn. Then we have 2 rows of okra, small right now, but it'll of course get nice and tall, and should provide us with okra all summer long until frost. The next we have is melons. This is watermelons and cantaloupe in that row. The next row I believe is cucumbers. The row after that is pumpkins. These are all pie pumpkins, the small ones. Then we have zucchini and we have yellow squash. And I noticed a couple of days ago we have our first yellow squash. They're little bitty, but in a few days they'll be harvest size. On this trellis I sometimes plant pole beans. And a view back to give you an idea of the entire garden layout. This has taken me 10 years of hard work to get to the point that you see here. Next we'll walk along the pecan orchard. We have 10 nice pecan trees that Dad planted about 30 years ago, and they're all producing nuts now, and most years we have a good harvest off of them. This spring I sprayed them with zinc. Pecans often suffer from a zinc deficiency, so they get maximum production if you supplement them with zinc. And we'll walk out here to the further orchard area. The row of trees beyond the pecans is mainly a windbreak. They're just cedars, so they're not productive trees, but they're there for the windbreak from the north winter winds. And you can see over here to the left more of our garden area. This area is not mulched. We garden it with a tractor and a rototiller to compete with the weeds, and then you have to use the old-fashioned manual method of hoeing between the rows, which is with lots more work. We have a double row of onions that's also just about ready for harvest. You can see them here between the weeds. You can also see in these cages this spring's peas. They're almost done. We've had a pretty good harvest of English peas off of those. More weeds. This is an asparagus. Most people have never seen what a full mature asparagus looks like. It's actually a grass. What you harvest are the first shoots that come up. Here are 4 rows of potatoes looking like they're doing quite well. They have quite a few weeds in them, but the potatoes are good and healthy and still growing. Here we have 2 rows of green beans. The good old Blue Lake green beans and some Italian green beans is the one on the right that make flat pods. Mom's rose garden looking very beautiful this spring. We went through and refreshed the mulch on it, so there's fewer weeds. You can see here are 5 rows that we planted in black-eyed peas just a few days ago, and they've gotten rained on, and now the peas are just starting to come up. Black-eyed peas make an excellent smother crop just to compete with the weeds because they're vigorous and fast-growing, even if you don't intend to harvest the peas off of them. Here we have a row of broccoli, and you can see there's one nice broccoli head still there that we need to come out and harvest, and the next one has already gone to flowers. There's a few cabbage at the end of that row, a few more onions. And you can see our lovely orchard here. There are various trees. I'm not sure what all of them are off the top of my head. This one we're standing next to I know is an apricot. The 4 in this corner are apricots. We had a good apricot harvest last year for the first time. Then next to that are some plums. And between them we usually mow this area, but we had sowed it with clover. There are quite a few weeds, but you can see there actually is quite a bit of clover in between the weeds. And there are beehive boxes that, of course, the clover is for the bees. I don't know how visible it is in the video, but there is lots of bee activity. They're coming and going. This is what the clover looks like. This is white sweet clover. And I'm panning around here looking for some blossoms because it's just starting to open blossoms. And of course when this is all in full bloom it's quite pretty and the bees are all over it. Yes, you can see right here is a little white blossom that has opened. And just imagine each and every one of these plants covered with those blossoms, making a huge amount of pollen and nectar to feed those bees. There are about 40 trees in the orchard. There are a few apples. We have tried cherries, have not had good success with cherries. We have 2 jujube trees. Here you can actually see the bees coming and going in the video. That little one next to us I believe is an apple. It's not looking too healthy. The 2 small ones there are black walnuts. And this is just a good overall view of the garden area and orchard out here.